Hey guys, what's going on? It's me, Jay, back here to talk about yet another movie within the Christmas extravaganza movie review, where we talk about all things Christmas. We talked about music before for Frank Sinatra. Now we're talking about movies once again, and we're doing the first version that we're going to be talking about of A Christmas Carol, and that is the 2000 uh, version of A Christmas Carol, at least what's going on, starring Vanessa Williams. But before I get into that, I want to talk a little bit about the origins of A Christmas Carol and where it comes from. A Christmas Carol, as many people know, is based on Charles Dickens' novel from 1843, the story of a greedy, miserable miser businessman living in Victorian England that is visited by three ghosts throughout the course of the night, as well as his former business associate that he uh, that he had previously passed away. And through the course of the night, the ghosts of Christmas present, the ghost of Christmas past, and the ghost of Christmas future, he learns the value of Christmas. And he goes from being this miserable business man who wouldn't give anybody off and who didn't value Christmas to appreciating the spirit of the holiday. This story came about because of a political change within England at the time. Yeah, I know it's called a Diva's Christmas Carol. At least I know. But a change in Victorian England at the time. For the longest time, England was not a country that valued Christmas because England had gone through a period of time, especially in the 17th century, called the um, the Puritan interregnum, in which the monarchy was overthrown and replaced by the Puritans, led by Oliver Cromwell. During this time, the Puritans had policies that they believed that the holiday of Christmas was a pagan holiday rooted in Catholicism and was too close to Catholicism. And the ultimate goal of Protestantism in England was to eradicate all traces of Catholicism. They believed that the Catholics had created Christmas and incorporated Christmas from the pagan winter solstice and the Saturnalia festival of the pagan Greeks and Romans. So they viewed it as a form of paganism, so they outlawed it. So Christmas was not really celebrated for the longest time in England, even after Charles II had taken over. But by the 18th century, excuse me, by the 1800s, the 19th century, Queen Victoria was in power. And Queen Victoria was married, of course, to the German Prince Albert, and they began to incorporate different Christmas festivals and reintegrate Christmas back into mainstream of British society. In fact, they were the first to introduce into the Anglo-centric world what I have in back of me right now, the Christmas tree, which was a pagan slash religious symbol that had been integral to Scandinavian and German culture. But and since Prince Albert, Queen Victoria's husband, was German, he introduced the Christmas tree into British custom and by extension American custom. So there was a spirit of Christmas renaissance, if you will, when Charles Dickens wrote this novel. Now, fast forward to the year 2000. The novel was successful. The novel, of course, reintroduced Christmas into the English speaking world, including the United States. And um, there have been many adaptations of the story of Ebenezer Scrooge. So the idea was make a modern version about, starring African American performers and centered around R&B music. So that brings us to the story. What is the story? Well, Vanessa Williams plays Ebony Scrooge, an R&B singer a famous R&B singer that she was once part of a group, and now she is no longer part of a group because her bandmate Marley had passed away. So similarly, like in the original story, Marley, who was a business partner of Ebenezer Scrooge, had passed away, and um, but she has to put up this pretense. The movie starts with her singing the Christmas songs, Christmas carols, if you will, and they're pouring fake snow on her in this video with kids all around, right? She's singing, and they pour the snow into her mouth, the fake snow into her mouth. She's in Paris. She gets upset. She starts screaming and yelling. They give her toasted French bread, and she's like, "What? I wanted French toast, French toast." She's yelling at them. She's a miserable bitch. You know what I mean? One thing I commented to Lisa, Vanessa Williams is very good at playing this miserable, bossy bitch character. She played it in Soul Food, and she plays it here. This girl is just insufferable. You know what I mean? And she has an assistant, Bob Cratchit. Now, many people know this is exactly like the original story. Bob Cratchit is the exact name of the person that works for Scrooge in the original Christmas Carol, that he will not give off, and for the holiday, because he doesn't believe in the holiday, and much like that, she also doesn't believe in the holiday. She's telling them she wants them to do a concert that day, and everybody in the band is bitching because everybody's like, "Wait a minute, I want to go home for the holiday." One girl already purchased her ticket to St. Louis, and she's like, "I already purchased my ticket. What the hell?" You know what I mean? So while Ebony's not around, everybody is basically talking shit about her and like, "Wait a minute, she's a total bitch. She's not giving us off." And her accountant is like telling her whatever she wants to hear. Meanwhile, he's embezzling, we later find out, money from her account. So she goes back to the hotel room, and we even see her being rude to the concierge, right, and the room service people, because she's like, if the turkey's not, if the food is not done a certain way, I'm sending it back. If the vegetables aren't done a certain way, I'm sending it back. Really giving them hell, really yelling at them a lot. So she takes sleeping pills along with some alcohol, a swig of alcohol, and it's set in New York City. And one thing that I mentioned to Lisa when we were watching it, we see a picture of the New York City skyline, and the World Trade Center is there, and it's basically almost a year, like 9 months, until the World Trade Center will no longer be there. So this movie is kind of like a piece of history, if you will, because pretty soon, no other movie will feature. This is like one of the last movies to feature the New York City skyline as it was from 1979 to 2001. With the Twin Towers, there, the actual real Twin Towers. So anyway, back to the story. She goes to sleep, and she's visited by Marley, her former uh, bandmate. The bandmate is played by Rosanda Chili Thomas of the band TLC, and this is funny because the interaction between them is very funny, and the special effects. Yeah, the special effects for this nice. The special effects for this movie are tremendous because for a TV movie produced by VH1, this and really didn't have a large budget, being as a TV movie. The special effects are great. There's a part in here where she doesn't believe that Chili's dead, and Chili has to remove her. Chili removes her head in order to prove that she's really dead, and she removes her face. She says, "If you don't stop, this is what you're going to look like." And she tells her, "You'll be visited by three ghosts: the ghost of Christmas past first, and the ghost of Christmas, and then finally the ghost of Christmas present, and then lastly the ghost of Christmas future." And Chili's wearing a chain dress, much like Marley was wearing chains in the original. So she doesn't believe it. She thinks it's the drugs and the sleeping pills talking. But later on, Kathy Griffin, who is a funny, this is the interaction between her and Vanessa Williams are funny, making fun of each other's clothes. Vanessa Williams basically being all diva-ish as she was in the movie, talking down to Kathy Griffin. She's like, "Oh, you don't think you're gonna outdress me? Give me time to get dressed." Oops, no time. We're going, and they go to her. She goes to her past, where she sees herself as a little child, happy with her brother Ronnie, who she they were close as kids, but the father was very abusive, and she sees them sing songs, and he beats them. And the grandmother, who's already sitting in the living room, calls ACS on the father, and the two are taken away and separated. Right? They each go into a different foster home. Later on, they're living in Patterson, New Jersey. Later on, which is her hometown. Later on, the brother gets older and he says, "You could come back now, Ebony, because dad's better." She feels like she can't trust her father. So basically, she has a very she has very tragic memories um, of Christmas, and this corresponds again to the original because um, Ebenezer Scrooge, in his first vision, when the ghost of Christmas past took him back in the original story, he also had issues uh, with his father, and this stems from the origins of the writer Charles Dickens, who had trouble with his dad as well. You know what I mean? So this is kind of the tension between father and child that is visited here. She says, "Can't we go to something happier? Happier events like a New Year's party in 1996 or whatever." Kathy Griffin says, "Unfortunately, I only deal with Christmas. And you don't have any. You don't have many Christmases that are positive Christmases, happy Christmases." But they take her to a Christmas performance by the group Desire in 1988, and they have big 80s hair. It's really funny to see Chili in this kind of 80s hair and Vanessa Williams in this kind of 80s hair looking like Whitney Houston from the video "I Want to Dance with Somebody," right? Like big teased out 80s style hair. And they're singing their song, and she is so happy because this is when they were able to sing the songs that they really wanted to sing, happy songs. Because once they got a record deal, the record company demanded that they sing, all these ballads. And she saw, finally a happier time, but it wasn't to last because eventually Chili's character would die, and the character of Terry, the third girl, would be left destitute. But unfortunately, this doesn't change Vanessa Williams all that much. She still is kind of a bitch because her niece invites her to Christmas, and she refuses. Like she basically talks down her niece. So she needs to be visited by yet another ghost. And this time she is visited by the ghost of Christmas present. This guy, this British rocker with a bunch of groupies around him, right? So he takes her to see various people that she works with. Bob Cratchit is one. When they're at the concert, the vision of the concert, we get the notion that Bob Cratchit and her had an affair because Kathy Griffin points out how cute Bob Cratchit is, and she's like, "Who, Bob?" And then uh, we're later told that she actually did date him in the 1980s, but it didn't work out because she was scared to commit. So, but now he's married with a child, Tiny Tim. So they go to visit different people in the present. They go to visit the niece, and the niece and her boyfriend, they're talking about Ebony and why Ebony didn't show up. They play charades, They're talking about, how miserable she is, but the niece sticks up for her because why? Because that's all she got. The father was close. The brother Ronnie, which is the niece's father, was very close to Ebony, and she still cares about it, but other people don't. They visit the bandmates, and she gets to see how the bandmates actually feel about her. You know what I mean? And they visit the accountant who has this girl who's like a prostitute, I guess, you know, and Vanessa Williams sees how that accountant is embezzling money from her too. And each time they take her to a different trip, we see the special effects. We see her getting whisked away. We see her falling down almost with her and Kathy Griffin. And she's like, wait a minute, I want to be included in this Christmas party, but when the niece came to you, you didn't want to be included. But now you see how much fun they're having in the Christmas present, and you want to be included. So, and then she sees Bob Cratchit, and she sees that Bob's son, Tiny Tim, is sick, and he can't do the Christmas show. He needs to go home, right? He needs to go home immediately to visit his family, right, in Illinois. But later, when he comes to her and asks her for time off, she says no. Even after the first trip, she still says no. But she sees how sick Tim is, and the wife is kind of frustrated because of their past. She thinks they're still having something. She's like, the hell with what Ebony's talking about. Your son, your only son, could pass away, and you're not even going to be here to take care of him. The hell with that. So now Ebony really feels bad because this kid, Tiny Tim, is just a child, much like the Tiny Tim in the original Christmas Carol. It's like, wait a minute, he's just a kid, like, and he's sick. He shouldn't have to suffer this. So she has a change of heart, but again, she'll be visited by a third ghost. Now, there isn't a third ghost coming to her in a physical form. What she experiences towards the end is a behind the music. Now, this was produced by VH1, and by this time in 2000, behind the music was something that we all watched. And you got Neil Rogers of the band Chic and Brian McKnight talking about her in the past tense, because in the Christmas's future, she passes away. Much like Marley had said, her future, if she was going to continue to take the sleeping pills and she was going to continue to drink, was going to be exactly like Marley, who had suffered in a car accident. So she's like, wait a minute, I'm not dead. But where does she go? She goes to her bed, covered up in curtains, and she sees herself laying there in a corpse. Again, more special effects. That is crazy. But basically, everyone is praising that she's dead. So she's basically given the message that if she doesn't change her ways, she will die and nobody will care. And another vision she sees in the present is her ex-bandmate Terry living destitute and really poor. Because why? Terry tried to use the band's name, and Ebony sued her for it and took everything that she had. So Ebony was really greedy when it came to this. So finally, after seeing what would happen to her if she did not change her ways, much like the original Scrooge, she yells out the window, "What day is it? What day is it?" And the guy goes, "It's Christmas," right? And she's changed her ways. She goes to the New York Children's Hospital. She buys them all turkey. She throws them a party. She visits her niece. She reconciles with her niece. She goes on a talk show, and now she is beaming and she is happy, almost too happy in a way. She pays for all of Tiny Tim's medical bills, and she's just a changed person. And we fast forward later on to a year later when her niece is pregnant. Her niece at the end announces that she was pregnant, and fast forward to a year later with her niece with the baby, and her last words that Ebony says to the niece is watch it now. Don't pee on the diva. And then we go to a concert that the group reunited had, where Chili Spirit is watching it. And Lisa pointed out, isn't it ironic that Chili was in this movie and she was part of a girl group with three people and two survived and one died. And Vanessa Williams' character reunites with Terry, finally giving her the just due. So it was a lot like Chili's real life. You know what I mean? Art imitating life. That well, it hadn't happened yet, but it would happen 2 years later with the passing of Left Eye in a car accident, no less. So it's kind of eerie when you stop and think. But this was a cool little movie, a cool retelling of the Christmas Carol. Unfortunately, Miss Mojo on here on YouTube did not give it its just due and ranked the Disney Christmas Carol and the Muppets Christmas Carol above it. But I believe this one stood true to the book in a way because while giving it a new modern spin. Unfortunately, guys, if you wanted to watch this film, uh, and review it, and watch it and go over it. You really can only watch it. We watch it on Venmo, right? It doesn't exist anywhere else. You can't purchase it. It's basically out of commission. It came out the 30th anniversary. It came out on December 13th, 2000, the 25th anniversary of it. The exactly 25 years when we watched it. And ironically, the original Christmas Carol came out in 1843 on December 19th. That was when the book was published. So we're coming right upon um, the anniversary of these. And Lisa's saying it doesn't air on VH1 either. According to Lisa, I didn't see this version, but there's an Ashanti version, a remake of this, and it's terrible. You know what I mean? But this one is definitely worth checking out. Um, highly recommended. Vanessa Williams, of course, the first Black Miss America. Like I said, always good at playing a Class A biatch in pretty much every movie, and a bossy one at that. Every role that she's in. But definitely give it a checking out. I feel like it's the truest to the original novel of Charles Dickens. There's a line in the movie where she says, "You even scared the Dickens out of me," which, of course, a reference to the famous author. Kathy Griffin, isn't it, too? Yes. Yes, it's Kathy Griffin. Many people know her. Kathy Griffin, Chili, right. But I mean, it stars Vanessa Williams. Vanessa Williams is the main star. But yes, Chili is in it as well. One of Chili's, I think, one of her first movie roles. And like I said, the special effects to be a made-for-TV movie are incredible. I always liked the Christmas Carol because it helps us to appreciate what we have in this world, and we take it for granted and we act mean and bitter. We may miss out on what what really matters. And in the end of the movie, the accountant gets arrested because the prostitute that he was with was actually an undercover FBI agent. But as many versions of A Christmas Carol that there are, I feel like this is one of the better ones. Thank you, Lisa, for contributing. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the bell button to see my next videos coming out. Peace.